Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22nd, Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the four Kumaras. Text number 47 onwards. Yaridrishi Bhagavato Gatiratmavad Ekandato Nigamabhi Pratipaditanaha Tushyanti Avadbhrag Karuna Swakritena Nityam Konam Tat Pratikaroti Vinodapatram. Prithu Maharaj continued, how can such persons who have rendered unlimited service by explaining the path of self-realization in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and whose explanations are given for our enlightenment with complete conviction and Vedic evidence be repaid except by folded palms containing water for their satisfaction? Such great personalities can be satisfied only by their own activities, which are distributed amongst human society out of their unlimited mercy. Beautiful way of describing by Prithu Maharaj. Great personalities of the material world are very eager to render welfare service to human society. But actually, no one can render better service than one who distributes the knowledge of spiritual realization in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All living entities are within the clutches of the illusory energy. Forgetting their real identity, they hover in material existence, transmigrating from one body to another in search of a peaceful life. Since these living entities have very little knowledge of self-realization, they are not getting any relief, although they are very anxious to attain peace of mind and some substantial happiness. Saintly persons like the Kumaras, Narad, Prahlad, Janak, Shukdev Goswami and Kapil Dev, as well as the followers of such authorities as the Vaishnava Acharyas and their servants, can render a valuable service to humanity by disseminating knowledge of the relationship between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. Such knowledge is a perfect benediction for humanity. See, in lack of this knowledge, living entities are just hovering around all over the universe, going through one species of life to another, to another, to another, one bird to another, to one place to another. They're looking for happiness. Everybody's just looking for happiness, one way or the other. Even in this human form of life, we jump from one place to another, one job to another, one friend to another friend, or something, just looking for happiness, or some material possessions to other possessions, thinking we can be happy then, we can be happy then. Doesn't work. So only when somebody comes and gives us this knowledge and helps us to implement that knowledge in our life, that person is a saint. That's a real saint. So such knowledge is a perfect benediction for humanity. Knowledge of Krishna is such a great gift that it is impossible to repay the benefactor. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj requested the Kumaras to be satisfied by their own benevolent activities in delivering souls from the clutches of Maya. The king saw that there was no other way to satisfy them for their exalted activities. The word Vinodapatram can be divided into two words, Vina and Uddapatram, or can be understood as one word, Vinodapatram, which means joker. A joker's activities simply arouse laughter. And a person who tries to repay the spiritual master or teacher of the transcendental message of Krishna becomes a laughing stock, just like a joker, because it's not possible to repay such a debt. The best friend and benefactor of all people is one who awakens humanity to its original Krishna consciousness. In fact, once some devotees asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, how can we repay the debt to you for saving us from falling in this material world? We were just loitering around, not knowing the goal of life. And Prabhupada says the spiritual master's debt cannot be repaid. There's nothing that you can do to repay the debt. Only thing you can do is to please him by preaching to more people, preaching to others. The knowledge that he has given you, you just try to preach to others. So this is the only thing that we can do to please Srila Prabhupada. All the wonderful knowledge that he has given, it's even a whole lifetime we can spend reading Prabhupada's books, but still won't be able to finish. We might be able to read through, but to understand, to realize, impossible. So to repay his debt, we should preach. We should give out the message to others. Text 48. Maitreya Uvacha ta atma yoga pate adirajena pujita shilam tadiyam shansanta ke abhavan mishatam nranam. The great sage Maitreya continued, being thus worshipped by Maharaj Prithu, the four Kumaras, who were masters of devotional service, became very pleased. Indeed, they appeared in the sky and praised the character of the king, and everyone observed them. It is said that the demigods never touch the surface of the earth. They walk and travel in space only. Like the great sage Narad, the Kumaras do not require any machine to travel in space. They are also residents of Siddhaloka who can travel in space without machines. Since they can go from one planet to another, they are called Siddhas. That is to say, they have acquired all mystic and yogic powers. Such great persons who have attained complete perfection in mystic yoga are not visible in this age on earth because humanity is not worthy of their presence. The Kumaras, however, praise the characteristics of Maharaj Prithu and his great devotional attitude and humility. The Kumaras were greatly satisfied by King Prithu's method of worship. It was by the grace of Maharaj Prithu that the common citizens in his domain could see the Kumaras flying in the outer space. So the Kumaras, they were there in the sky, then they just appeared in the sky. So far only Prithu Maharaj could see, but now common people could also see. But this is the thing Prabhupada says, that in this day and age, we are so fallen, everybody. Of course, Prabhupada could see, as I explained the other day, once there were not too many guests who came in the auditorium where the devotees had arranged the program. And the devotees were kind of feeling bad afterwards. And Prabhupada said, why are you feeling bad? Didn't you see Narad Muni had come? Didn't you see so many other sages had come? So Prabhupada could see them, but to our vision, we don't see anything. So only thing is, yes, we are not pure enough. We are not up to that level. But going by Prabhupada's words, so definitely such saints had come, and they keep on coming. Just we have to be pure enough. And in this Kali Yuga, it's so difficult. Vanyastu dhuryo mehtam sansityatma adhyatma shikshaya apta kamam ivatmanam mena atmani avasthita. Amongst great personalities, Maharaj Prithu was the chief by virtue of his fixed position in relation to the spiritual enlightenment. He remained satisfied as one who has achieved all success in spiritual understanding. Remaining fixed in devotional service gives one the utmost in self satisfaction. Actually, self satisfaction can be achieved only by pure devotees who have no desire other than to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to desire, he is fully satisfied with himself. Similarly, a devotee who has no desire other than to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead is as self-satisfied as the Supreme Lord. Everyone is hankering after peace of mind and self-satisfaction, but this can be only achieved by becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. So a pure devotee, he is completely fixed, just like Prithu Maharaj is fixed, and because he has full realization of the Supreme Lord, and he is completely self-satisfied. King Prithu's statements in previous verses regarding his vast knowledge and perfect devotion service are justified here, for he is considered best among the Mahatmas. Krishna speaks of Mahatmas in this way: O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotion service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. The Mahatmas are not under the clutches of the illusory energy, but are under the protection of the spiritual energy. Because of this, the real Mahatma is always engaged in the devotion service of the Lord. Prithu Maharaj exhibited all the symptoms of a Mahatma. Therefore, he is mentioned in this verse as Dhuryo Mahatam, best of the Mahatmas. And because he is always engaged in devotional service, and he is fixed in his relationship. Karmani cha yatha kalam, yatha desham, yatha balam, yathocittam, yatha vittam, akarod brahm sahat kritam. Being self-satisfied, Maharaj Prithu executed his duties as perfectly as possible, according to the time and the situation, strength and financial position. His only aim in all his activities was to satisfy the absolute truth. In this way, he duly acted. His only aim in all his activities was to satisfy the absolute truth. So not only him, so he was a king, he was a monarch. So as a leader, when he sets an example like that, everybody will follow him. Understanding devotion service is a way of life. This is a perfection. So king, or any leader for that matter, has to set the proper example for his followers to follow. They follow his example more than his words. So it's very important if we become a leader, or we are leader in one way or the other, some sense. Maybe we're leader of 2 or 3 people, or maybe we're leader of 50, 60 people, or maybe 100, 200 people, whatever. But we have to set the right example. Maharaj Prithu was a responsible monarch, and he had to execute the duties of a Kshatriya, a king and a devotee at the same time. Being perfect in Lord's devotional service, he could execute his prescribed duties with complete perfection, as befitted the time and circumstance, and his financial strength and personal ability. In this regard, the word karmani in this verse is significant. Maharaj Prithu's activities were not ordinary, for they are in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Rupa Goswami has advised that things which are favorable to devotion service should not be rejected, nor should activities favorable to devotion service be considered ordinary work or fruitive activity. For example, an ordinary worker conducts business in order to earn money for his sense gratification. A devotee may perform the same work in exactly the same way, but his aim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Consequently, his activities are not ordinary. So Prithu Maharaj's activities were not ordinary at all. He was ruling, but he was ruling with the consciousness of serving and satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prithu Maharaj's activities were therefore not ordinary, but were all spiritual and transcendental, for his aim was to satisfy the Lord. Just as Arjuna, who was a warrior, had to fight to satisfy Krishna, Prithu Maharaj performed his royal duties as king for the satisfaction of Krishna. Indeed, whatever he did as emperor of the whole world was perfectly befitting a pure devotee. It is therefore said by a Vaishnava poet, Vaishnavera kriya mudra vigya na bujay. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. A pure devotee's activities may appear like ordinary activities, but behind them is a profound significance, the satisfaction of the Lord. In order to understand the activities of a Vaishnava, one has to become very expert. Maharaj Prithu did not allow himself to function outside the institution of 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams. Although as a Vaishnava, he was a Paramhansa, transcendental to all material activities. He remained at his position as a Kshatriya to rule the world and at the same time remained transcendental to such activities by satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Concealing himself as a pure devotee, he externally manifested himself as a very powerful and dutiful king. In other words, none of his activities were carried out for his own sense gratification. Everything he did was meant for the satisfaction of the senses of the Lord. This is clearly explained in the next verse. So, such an exalted person, and here it is. We have studied earlier also, and Prabhupada mentioned here also, he was the emperor of the whole world. Can't even, and that too at the time when there were no cell phones or the computers. So how he managed to rule over the whole world and still satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was managing, he was ruling the world in a way that the Lord was satisfied. Because this was his devotional service. This was his service to the Lord. He was not doing anything for himself. So how he did, let's see. Phalam brahmani sanyasya nirvishanga samahita karmadhyaksham cha manvana atmanam prakritehi param. Maharaj Prithu completely dedicated himself to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to material nature. Consequently, all the fruits of his activities were dedicated to the Lord. And he always thought of himself as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is a proprietor of everything. So all the fruits of his activities were dedicated to the Lord. The life and dedication of Maharaj Prithu in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead serve as a good example of Karma Yoga. The term Karma Yoga is often used in Bhagavad Gita, and herein Maharaj Prithu is giving a practical example of what Karma Yoga actually is. The first requirement for the proper execution of Karma Yoga is given herein. Phalam brahmani sanyasya one must give the fruits of his activities to the Supreme Brahman, Par-Brahman, Krishna. By doing so, one actually situates himself in the renounced order of life, sannyas. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, giving up the fruits of one's activities into the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called sannyas. To give up the results of one's activities is called renunciation, tyag, by the wise, and that state is called the renounced order of life, sannyas, by greatly learned men. Although he was living as a householder, Prithu Maharaj was actually in the renounced order of life, sannyas. This will be clearer in the following verses. So first he gave up the fruits of his activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word nirvisanga, uncontaminated, is very significant because Maharaj Prithu was not attached to the results of his activities. In this material world, a person is always thinking of the proprietorship of everything he accumulates or works for. When the fruits of one's activities are rendered to the service of the Lord, one is actually practicing karma yoga. It's not that working hard makes one karma yogi. Generally people, when we go and preach to somebody, to his office, oh, Prabhuji, I'm a karma yogi. I work hard in the office. Working hard doesn't make one karma yogi. Working for the pleasure of the Supreme makes one a karma yogi. Or like Prabhupada says, giving up the fruits of his activities for the service of the Lord. Not just giving up. First of all, we are so attached to our activities. We are attached to our activities and we are attached to the results of our activities. So where is the yoga in this case? Yoga has to be linking our consciousness with the Supreme. And generally people link their consciousness with the Supreme in the sense, okay, Krishna, I'm going to do business today. You please give me lots of money, lots of profit. And in return, I'll give you 100 rupees, 1,000 rupees, whatever. Or just like when Prabhupada was preaching in India, so he was always encouraging the people he would meet to engage in devotion service, to give some charity. Because Prabhupada's main aim was to multiply the movement, carry it forward. So needed money. So one person he met and he said, oh, Swamiji, I give all my money to Krishna. Whatever I earn, I give it to Krishna. Prabhupada was very surprised. How do you give it to Krishna? How do you give everything you earn to Krishna? Then how do you live? How do you give, first of all? Oh, he said, it's simple, Swamiji. Whenever I go to work, then I get my paycheck at the end of the month. And then we have a temple in the house, an altar. So I bring the paycheck, I put it in the altar and offer it to Krishna. And then I take it and deposit it in the bank, and then I do my regular expenses. So I have offered everything to Krishna. So basically it was just in our mind, we are thinking we are offering, but actually we are not. We are using it. That devotee was using it for his own purpose. To really give up the proprietorship of everything is not easy. Even sannyasis cannot do that. So being a karma yogi, it's not easy. When the fruits of one's activities are rendered to the service of the Lord, without expecting anything back, one is actually practicing karma yoga. Anyone can practice karma yoga, but it is especially easy for the householder who can install the deity of the Lord in the home and worship him according to the methods of bhakti yoga. This method includes 9 items: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity, praying, carrying out the orders, serving Krishna as friend, and sacrificing everything for him. These methods of karma yoga and bhakti yoga are being broadcast all over the world by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone can learn these methods simply by following the examples of the members of the society. So when we work and we have the deities at home, and then we serve the deities nicely by following these 9 principles, Navda Bhakti, then it becomes bhakti yoga. Then we are going way beyond karma yoga only. Then we are on the level of bhakti yoga. In one's home or in a temple, the deity is considered the proprietor of everything, and everyone is considered the deity's eternal servant. The Lord is transcendental, for he is not part of this material creation. The words Prakriti Param are used in this verse because everything within this material world is created by the external material energy of the Lord. But the Lord himself is not a creation of this material energy. The Lord is the supreme superintendent of all material creations, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all the moving and non-moving beings. And by its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. All material changes and material progress taking place by the wonderful interaction of matter are under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Events in this material world are not taking place blindly. If one always remains a servant of Krishna and engages everything in his service, one is accepted as Jivan Mukta, a liberated soul, even during his lifetime within the material world. Generally, liberation takes place after one gives up his body, but one who lives according to the example of Prithu Maharaj is liberated even in this lifetime. In Krishna consciousness, the results of one's activities depend on the will of the Supreme Person. Indeed, in all cases, the result is not dependent on one's own personal dexterity, but is completely dependent on the will of the Supreme. This is the real significance of Phalam Brahmani Sannyasya. A soul dedicated to the service of the Lord should never think of himself as a personal proprietor or the superintendent. A dedicated devotee should prosecute his work according to the rules and regulations described in devotional service. The results of his activities are completely dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. A soul dedicated to the service of the Lord should never think of himself as a personal proprietor or the superintendent. He should think of himself as, I'm just a servant of the Lord. And somehow or other, I've been put in this position to serve the Lord, maybe as a king or maybe as a sweeper, doesn't matter. I just need to serve the Lord. And in the process, if one picks up this Navda Bhakti, then it becomes Bhakti Yoga. It's not Karma Yoga anymore, it's Bhakti Yoga. Just like there's a story of a king, I'm forgetting the name of the king. And he was a great devotee of the Lord Krishna, and he had a beautiful temple in his palace. And every morning he would spend a few hours serving the deities, cleaning the temple and bathing the deity, decorating the deity, and doing all the arti and everything that he could. So his his enemies, his neighboring kings who were his enemies, they found out that in the morning this king does all his puja, so that is the best time to attack. So that's what the enemy king did. He attacked in the morning. So the commander in chief of the armed forces, he came running to the king, and the king was busy in his temple. And the Senapati came and he said, "Oh, the other side has attacked, and we are not prepared now. What to do? You have to come and lead the war." And the king said, "I cannot come right now. I'm busy. I'm serving the Supreme Lord. I'm not going to come." And the Senapati commander was getting nervous. He ran outside and he said, "Okay, I'll do whatever I can." So when he went to the war field to fight other king, but then he saw that his king was with them, leading the army, and they defeated the enemy, and the enemy ran away, and he came back, and the commander went to the king. He said, "I thought you said you were busy in the temple. You could not come, but how come you came?" "And because you came, you led. We defeated the enemies." Anyways, I'm glad everything went fine. So then he came back to the palace, and when he came back to the palace, the king asked, in the palace, the king was there. King asked him, "What happened?" The commander was surprised. "What do you mean, what happened? You were in the war. You were leading us. And here you are asking what happened." So the king understood. The deity went to fight on behalf of the king and took the form of the king because of the pleasure of the service, all the service the king was rendering. So that's a very high position, actually. But the deities can do that. The deities, they can reciprocate in whichever way they want to. But that all depends upon the devotional service the devotee is offering. But then it becomes bhakti yoga. It's not just karma yoga anymore. Griheshu vartamano api sa samarajya shriyanvitaha na sajjate indriyartheshu niraham matir arkavat. Maharaj Prithu was very opulent due to the prosperity of his entire empire. He remained at home as a householder. Since he was never inclined to utilize his opulences for the gratification of his senses, he remained unattached, exactly like the sun, which is unaffected in all circumstances. The word griheshu is significant in this verse. Out of the 4 ashrams, the brahmacharya, grihastha, vanprastha, and sannyas, only a grihastha or a householder is allowed to associate with women. Therefore, the grihastha ashram is a kind of license for sense gratification given to the devotee. Prithu Maharaj was special in that, although he was given license to remain a householder, and although he possessed immense opulences in his kingdom, he never engaged in sense gratification. This was a special sign that indicated him to be a pure devotee of the Lord. A pure devotee is never attracted by sense gratification, and consequently, he is liberated. In material life, a person engages in sense gratification for his own personal satisfaction. But in the devotional liberated life, one aims to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So satisfying the senses of the Lord means engaging in devotional service. And the first two, Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, these activities please the Lord much more than anything else. Of course, everything else also pleases, but these two activities, specifically these two. Now one may ask, why? If I'm chanting the holy names of the Lord, how does it pleases the Lord? Is he is he like egotist that he likes to hear his name by being chanted? All the qualities that we have actually are in the Lord, but we have it in a perverted form. The Lord likes us to chant his name because he knows. This is what scripture says. Nam namino abhinatvam. He is non-different from his name. Okay? And if we chant his name, then we will get purified. And when we get purified, we become eligible to go back to the spiritual world. So it's not that he is happy that when we are chanting his name because he feels very good that somebody is calling out from me. No, he is happy because we are chanting and we are getting purified. And we are getting eligible to go back home, back to God. Where he is eagerly waiting for our presence so that we can have our relationship established again. So devotional service or liberated life, one aims to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So his senses are satisfied, not like us, with like politicians or the movie stars or the sports stars. When they suppose a sports star cricketer is going to bat and whole pavilion or the stadium, everybody is chanting his name, whatever his name is. He feels very proud, very good. Okay, see, so many fans I have. But this is not the way Krishna is satisfied or Krishna is pleased when we chant his name, because he knows by chanting his name we are getting purified. And by chanting a sports star's name, neither he is getting satisfied or purified, or neither the chanters are. In fact, both of them getting more and more entangled. So that is devotional service. People cannot understand why you guys sit down whole day and with this mala and chanting. What is it going to do? How is the Lord going to be happy with this? Go do some service in the society, feed some hungry person. Well, feeding hungry person is good. We are not against it. But feeding him prasadam is the best. And for feeding him prasadam, first we have to prepare the prasadam. And to prepare the prasadam, one has to prepare it with love and devotion. And love and devotion will come only when we have some purification. In this verse, Maharaj Prithu is likened to the sun, Arkavat. Sometimes the sun shines on stool, urine, and so many other polluted things. But since the sun is all-powerful, it is never affected by the polluted things with which it associates. On the contrary, the sunshine sterilizes and purifies polluted and dirty places. Similarly, a devotee may engage in so many material activities, but because he has no desire for sense gratification, they never affect him. On the contrary, he dovetails all material activities for the service of the Lord. Since a pure devotee knows how to utilize everything for the Lord's service, he is never affected by material activities. Instead, by his transcendental plans, he purifies such activities. This is described in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam. His aim is to become completely purified in the service of the Lord without being affected by material designations. And how he does it? By engaging everything in the service of the Lord. The second part of the shloka is Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparaitvam nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir chate. So Rishikena Rishikesha, all the senses, when they are engaged in the service of the Lord, that is bhakti. And that's and when bhakti becomes more and more intense, one gets out of all this upadhi, any titles. I'm man and I'm woman and Indian and American and I'm black and I'm white and I'm rich and I'm poor, I'm educated, I'm illiterate. All these are upadhis given to the body. Soul has nothing to do with it. Soul's only designation is, I'm a servant of the Lord. So when he is engaged in that designation, in that position, then everything else doesn't matter and everything gets purified. एवं अध्यात्म योगेन कर्माणि अनुसमाचरन् पुत्रानुत्पाद्यमास पंचार्चिष्यात्म सम्मतान्. Being situated in the liberated position of devotional service, Prithu Maharaj not only performed all fruitive activities, but also begot 5 sons by his wife, Archi. Indeed, all his sons were begotten according to his own desire. As a householder, Prithu Maharaj had 5 sons by his wife, Archi, and all these sons were begotten as he desired them. They were not born whimsically or by accident. How can one beget children according to one's own desire is practically unknown in this present age, Kali Yuga. In this regard, the secret of success depends on the parents' acceptance of various purificatory methods known as sanskaras. The first sanskar, the Garbhadan sanskar or child begetting sanskar, is compulsory, especially for the higher castes, the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, sex life, which is not against religious principles, is Krishna himself. And according to religious principles, when one wants to beget a child, he must perform the Garbhadan sanskar before having sex. The mental state of the father and mother before sex will certainly affect the mentality of the child to be begotten. A child who is begotten out of lust may not turn out as a parent's desire. As stated in the Shastras, Yatha Yonir, Yatha Bijam. Yatha Yoni indicates the mother, and Yatha Bijam indicates the father. If the mental state of the parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. It is therefore understood by the words Atma Sammatan that both Prithu Maharaj and Archi underwent the Garbhadan purificatory process before begetting children. And thus they begot all their sons according to their desires and purified mental states. Prithu Maharaj did not beget his children out of lust, nor was he attracted to his wife for sense gratificatory purposes. He begot the children as a grihastha for the future administration of his government all over the world. So this Garbhadan sanskar is a must actually to make the womb purified so that only a pure soul can enter that womb of the mother. So we have studied how in the case of Diti and Diti and Kashyap Muni, when they had intercourse at the wrong time, in the wrong state of mind, the 2 biggest demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they were born. But in case of Prithu Maharaj, him and his wife Archi, They followed the scriptures properly. And then they had 5 sons. And all sons were exactly how they wanted. That's really amazing. So in Kali Yuga, in this day and age, Prabhupada mentioned, okay, so whole Garbhadan Sanskar is not practical, not possible. So husband and wife, they should chant 50 rounds each on the day when they want to beget a child or conceive a child. But even after that, because our chanting is not proper, still parents don't know what kind of soul is going to enter the womb. Okay, both are devotees, chances are it will be a devotee child. But again, even devotees have so many gradations now. So it's very, very difficult. Kali Yuga. But Prithu Maharaj, being Shaktivesh Avatar and a pure devotee, and his wife was again pure devotee. So they begot children exactly as they wanted. And Prabhupada said he begot the children as a grihastha for the future administration of his government all over the world. Just like Bhakti Vinod Thakur, when he was in Jagannath Puri, and he was trying to preach, trying to spread the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he was finding it very difficult at that time. So he prayed to Lord Jagannath to send me a ray of your light, just one ray to help me in this process, in this mission. And that's how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born in his house. And he was called a ray of Vishnu, and he was so strong in his preaching. He established Gaudiya Math, and he opened 64 temples of Gaudiya Math all over India at that time when India was under British rule. Very difficult time. So for a pure person like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Lord sent him a child who can take out the mission. So we can only pray to the Lord, please send us a child. If we are expecting or if we want to, please send us a child who's a devotee. That's all. And rest we don't know. Rest then it depends upon us how we raise a child and what kind of example we set for the child. So anyway, we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, upbringing of child is very, very important in this day and age.
Very, very
Important in this day and age. If the
important.
parents don't
Yeah.
know anything about the devotion service and the purification of soul, and so on. Very difficult,
Mm-hmm. I know.
We all
And
are full of.
that is why Krishna didn't give me any, because I was not responsible enough. He said, this guy is not
Don't say like
responsible at all.
this. जिनको किया वो ढंग से डालना.
He cannot take any responsibility or anything he can do.
प्रभुजी तो ईश्वर ने जिनको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दी है वो कौन सा ढंग से निभा रहे हैं प्रभुजी. ये नहीं है. It is not like this.
भगवान ने देखा ही होगा ना, तभी तो दिया आपको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी।
नहीं नहीं, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी तो दी है पर नॉलेज भी नहीं दिया ना उसके साथ हम लोग। अब पता चल रहा है तो नाउ इट्स टू लेट लाइक। क्योंकि बच्चे छोटे हैं, दे कैन बी वेरी वेरी केयरफुल, दे हैव अ दिस थिंग, बट
Your
grown up
children are
children,
Prabhu. We are all rebels. So you are managing the rebels.
I know.
You are managing a rebel teacher.
Prabhuji, don't.
At least, Mata, they are all having prasadam from young age. We had never even heard of Krishna consciousness at that age.
Yeah.
But I'm, you know, मेरे को अब अच्छा लगता है when I go to temple and I see the छोटे छोटे बच्चे, they are dressing up in Radha and Krishna. I said very nice. The
Yeah.
small age.
Yeah, that is true.
And examples of Pramod Prabhuji, Pramod Mohanty Prabhuji, the whole family is involved in devotional service, and they're पुटकू पुटकू छोटे छोटे बच्चे दोनों। And Vinay Prabhuji, you know, उनके बच्चे like
Yeah,
Mataji.
yeah, really fortunate.
chanting कर रही है, रोज का एक राउंड दो राउंड, very nice.
Nowadays we are not hearing anything about my Ambarish Prabhu.
हाँ, I think Vinay
Prabhuji, Amrish Prabhuji is dedicated towards something else, but before going to sleep, he hears the Krishna bhajan.
very nice. That's good.
Now how many rounds is chanting?
He doesn't chant at all now, but he sings Krishna bhajan. And if I get a chance, Prabhuji, someday he play harmonium also. So one bhajan, Hare Krishna, I will ensure that he can do it live for all of us.
Sure, that'll be great.
Very nice, Vinay Prabhuji.
Yep.
Hare Krishna.
Shanvi also.
All these children are very special.
Yes. And look at Shanvi, she's every day she's doing a, 1 or 2 rounds without fail.
Yep. Yeah.
Very nice. Janshati Mataji doing a great job.
Prabhuji, my mom today, she was asking that so all of a sudden, like I was here, she sees every day I hear this katha every day, and she says like, is it in Hindi also? Is it only in English? I said, Mom, it's just in English for now. Unfortunately, right now it's for English, so we hear it. So I said, would you like to talk to Prabhuji once? And she said, okay. I said, that's something very good, nice he's doing. So I'll connect with you right away. One second.
Okay. Adit Prabhu, you can stop the recording if you need.
Yep.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Jai Shri Ram.